Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, February the 13th meeting of the Comox Valley Sewage Commission. And I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the unceded territory of the Comox First Nation, the traditional keepers of this land. We have Directors Kerr, Swift, Grant, and myself in the room. We have Directors McCollum, Cole Hamilton, and Alm online. And I acknowledge Director Arbor, who's in the audience today, as well as regional district staff. Thanks very much, everyone, for being here today. Appreciate your ongoing service as always. So we have our first item on the agenda is public input into the 2024 to 2028 proposed financial plan. Mr. CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Pleased to introduce Lucy Witcharek, our Chief Financial Officer, who will provide an update on the summary, a summary update on the public input received to the financial plan process to date. Lucy.
Thank you. Thank you through the CAO, through the chair, and to directors. For the 2024 budget cycle, we did put in place enhanced methods for public engagement, and we have used our Engage site on the CVRD website, and this just gives our citizens an opportunity for more interactive questions and answers and providing us feedback. So really happy to say that we have been getting a number of pieces of feedback that have come through. There are now 5 pieces of feedback out there. And we also had a couple of questions that were posted over the last 4 days. So I won't go through any more specifics about that. The information is out there on the Engage site for directors to read through that and see the conversations that are happening as well.
Thanks very much, Lucy. Any questions or comments from commission members? Seeing none, we shall move on. And the next item on our agenda is the Sewage Management Advisory Committee minutes from February the 1st for receipt, please. Motion moved by Kerr, seconded by Swift. And Director Cole Hamilton, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to make a brief comment. I was just really struck by the sheer volume of infiltration and what's the other I&I, inflow and infiltration that we're experiencing, and just really pleased to see that we're going to start seeing measurements of that appearing in future reports. And anyway, I just was acknowledging the discussion that was going on there in terms of limiting that, because it has obviously a tremendous cost in the end. So thanks.
Thanks, Director Cole Hamilton. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, is there anyone opposed to receipt? That is passed. And we'll move on to item number 2, apportionment of 2024 sewer municipal levy, a report dated February 2nd and we'll take a motion for receipt, please.
Moved.
Moved by McCollum, seconded by Swift, and over to staff.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And Chris LaRose, our Senior Manager of Water Wastewater Services, will introduce this staff report to the Commission. Chris, over to you.
Great, thanks, James, and through the chair. Good afternoon, everyone. This is a very brief report that comes to you at this time of year every year to help inform how the municipal requisition will be allocated in the coming year. So it is based on last year's flows. And so table 1 in the report summarizes the total flow that was received from each participant last year. And then table 2 shows really it comes down to the flow between Courtenay and Comox. And so in 23, 69.09% of flows came from Courtenay and 30.91% came from Comox. And the attachment has the flows and that percentage split for every year. Well, the previous 5 for sure. And just looking at 2022, there was almost exactly the same. So very, very little change year over year from 22 to 23. Yeah, happy to take any questions about this report.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions or comments? There don't appear to be any, so we'll just thank you for that report, Chris, and I'll ask if anyone's opposed to receipt. Seeing none, that is approved as well, and we shall move on to item number 3, the 2024 to 2028 financial plan, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Warren.
Thank you. And again, Lucy is here to provide a brief update on the financial planning process. Most of the commission members have seen this process several times now, but Lucy will provide that overview now.
Thank you through the CAO and the chair to the directors. Many of you have already been with us through this journey of this year's deliberation, but for the couple of members on this commission that this may be the first time you're sitting with budget deliberations, I'll just make a couple of brief comments. Please feel free to ask me any questions before we move on to dealing with the overviews and the individual service that we will go through for this particular commission. So this bit of this roadmap that's on the screen for you today, hopefully is helpful. We've started this process back in January where the budget was delivered. We also put out the full package. So just calling your attention to one of the things that we've done is organized our services by core service, and that's how everything's posted out on the website. So I hope you're able to find what you needed to review for this particular meeting. As we go through the budgets today, you will have a bit of an overview from our GM Mark on the core service of sewage treatment. And then we will proceed to move to the individual service 335, where our budget managers, our managers will provide you with a overall presentation. They likely will not touch on every slide that's out there. The idea was for the PowerPoint to replace what you were used to from a report perspective. So it has a lot of very key information on there. Chris may not touch on every single one of those slides. After he's done his presentation, we can address any questions and the commission will then be asked to endorse that proposed budget. And all of that will come back to the CVRD board on March 12th, all encompassed in the recommended budget. And they will consider that within their budget bylaws as well. So with that, if there's any questions, I certainly can provide some additional information.
Thanks very much, Lucy. Does anyone have any questions or comments? All right, there's none, so we shall move along, and that takes us to item number 4, which is the sewage treatment core service. And I believe our CAO, Mr. Warren, will turn it over to staff for that.
Yeah, simply introducing Mark Rutten, our General Manager of Engineering Services, to present that core service overview for sewage treatment. Mark.
Great, thanks, James. Good afternoon through the CEO and through the chair. This is the same presentation that I made on February the 5th to the board. It's the core service for sewer treatment, and I'll go through it fairly quickly, but if there's any questions, please stop me, and I'm happy to talk about any of these slides. First slide here is the core service summary for sewer. These are the key success indicators for the sewer service. Asset management is key. Controlling costs and looking for grants and other partnership opportunities is also key for this service. A resilient and reliable infrastructure, partnering with First Nations, reducing I&I, as was discussed at the start of the meeting. And of course, reducing the risk along Willamar Bluffs, which is now well underway with the conveyance project being awarded. Initiatives. So there are a couple of, there's a lot going on in this service, a lot beyond just this slide, but some very significant key initiatives here with the conveyance project, very expensive project. Liquid waste management planning. So that process wrapping up over the next couple of years, moving into the final stage of that planning process. And then, of course, the Sewer Extension South project, which is highlighted here because it's a sewer project, but not under the financial plan for 335 that you'll hear about later. But a significant project with a lot of resources going towards it. The corporate energy and emissions plan, last year we really focused on audit work, determining where the energy was being consumed. This year we'll be identifying those projects that make the most sense, that provide the greatest benefit, and then bringing those forward for consideration. So in this service, got a couple of challenges and also some opportunities. Costs are high, like we see across many services, so that's a challenge for sure. I&I, as was mentioned, the more wastewater flowing through the system, the bigger it has to be and the more expensive it is. So anything that can be done to reduce that flow will benefit. We've got some complex partnerships, which are definitely an opportunity to help spread costs around for some of our projects, especially South Sewer, but they are complex and they rely on each other and each partner coming through to make a successful project. Some of our smaller systems are very challenged by meeting regulatory requirements for sewer systems. So we've got 2 very small systems in rural areas, which have very high costs. And asset management is a big opportunity for this service. There's a lot of assets in this service. The better we manage them, the better off we'll be in the future. Got a graph here that just totals up all of the sewer services for the CVRD. 90, I'm not sure exactly what number it is, but over 90% of this is our core service, which is the Comox Valley Sewer Service, but the 2 rural sewer services are also included here. And then on the funding side, most of the funding for sewer services comes from taxation, either through a requisition to Courtney and Comox or directly to residents for the 2 very small services that we have. The 2 bars in 2024 and 2025 are increased due to a large bit of engineering work that we need to do for the South Sewer project. And this is a summary of how the service meets many of our key drivers. And I'm happy to answer any questions if there are some or any.
Thank you, Mark. We'll just see if there's any questions. And while we're waiting to see that, I'll just acknowledge that Area B Director Hardy is actually here as well with us today. He's been here since just after the meeting started. And we also have Director Morin from Courtney sitting as a guest in the gallery, obviously paying rapt attention to all that's going on here. Thank you. So I'm just going to ask you a question that this was actually in the advisory committee minutes as well, but you made reference to inflow and infiltration. And I'm just wondering if you can clarify for directors the bypass process that is mentioned in the earlier minutes.
Yeah, I can, and I can also draw on Chris and Reed here if there's more detailed information required. But essentially, the treatment plant was designed with a bypass, which could be used to bypass very high flows around the secondary treatment process, and that's to safeguard the biology that's used in the treatment process so that it's not washed out during a very high flow event. So the plant is designed for that, but with that capability, but it has never been used in the history of the plant. And through the liquid waste management planning process, we've been directed by the advisory committees and by the commission through the reports that you've received and supported to not use it in the future. So to not rely on that, to always treat all of the flow that comes to the plant. But there is a bypass there that could have been used, but has not.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. I don't see any other comments or questions from members. So we'll thank you very much for your presentation, Mark. And I don't believe do we require a motion on that? No, we don't. We seem to have dispensed with receipt motions today, which I have absolutely no problem with. So thanks very much, Mark. And we'll move on to the financial plan function 335, Comox Valley Sewage Service, and over to staff.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair, and Chris LaRose is going to present the 335 budget, which is for the Comox Valley Sewer Service. Chris is our Senior Manager of Water and Wastewater Services. Chris, over to you.
Great, thank you, James, and hello again, everyone. Yeah, so 2023 was a pretty big year for the Comox Valley Sewage Service. We successfully completed procurement for the conveyance project. We had a ton of great operations work by Reed and his team. We progressed the liquid waste management planning process, received feedback from the province, essentially approval of the stage 1 and 2 plan, and did a lot of work planning for the future of the Comox Valley Water Pollution Control Center. So 2024 will be even more interesting as we start the conveyance construction, and with it the associated impacts on the community, which we're working very hard to mitigate. We'll be re-engaging with the liquid waste management planning TAC and PAC, the Technical and Public Advisory Committee, incorporating the South Liquid Waste Management Plan and kicking off the design process for the next phase of upgrades at the treatment plant. So lots going on. So yeah, working closely with finance, Reed and I developed this presentation that we'll walk through fairly quickly, because I know a lot of it's pretty familiar to you by now. First of all, just a little bit about the service. So the CVSS receives bulk wastewater from Courtenay, Comox, Department of National Defense, and the Comox First Nation at 6 pump stations located through the core area, and then conveys the wastewater through a network of conveyance pipes to the CVW-PCC, the Pollution Control Center, for treatment before it's discharged off of Cape Lazo. All participants manage their own collection system, so we just receive the bulk wastewater, convey it, treat it, and discharge. So there's 2 sub-functions that we use to help improve the clarity and transparency of the financial planning process. So the first one for the composting facility, so to tease out the operational costs and minor capital for that facility, and then the second one is for pump stations. So as our manager of wastewater services, Reed leads a crew of about 15 wastewater operators that manage the treatment plant, the pump stations, the compost facility for the CVSS, and then the landfill leachate and landfill gas infrastructure for the CSWM service. So over to you, Reed, for operational overview of last year in this. Yeah, come on up.
Call me up there?
Yeah, come on there. Yep, there you go.
Which one's?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. All right, thanks everyone. I'll give you some brief highlights on operations for last year. Like Chris said, it was definitely a pretty busy year for us. Some of the key highlights at the compost facility, like you mentioned, we've finished up a new washroom and lunchroom for the crew up there, which is very much appreciated. They've got a new clean space. It's not part of the biosolids composting main building, so that was a big improvement for the staff up there. We completed the value management review for the initial site master plan, which shed a lot of really good light on process improvements and optimization that can be done at the existing facility, which should help lead to longevity of the existing infrastructure there and deferring some of the large scale tankage that'll be needed in the future. As Chris touched on, finishing the stage 1 and 2 LWMP review by the province. We had a large SCADA electricals control project that happened at our dewatering facility, which was a couple months of fine tuning and tweaking of things in the summer. It was a little bit difficult as we need to dewater every day, so the work needed to be done in downtime. So there was a lot of scheduling and some longer days for the crew, but successful project. Everything's running really well right now. The conveyance project obviously procured, and we're all excited to get going on that this year. As to our 2030 and 2050 goals on our carbon emissions, and we've got our first 2 EV chargers installed last year at the CBWPCC. Don't have any electric vehicles yet, but they're on the slate for next year. So right now it's office staff as they come out. And one of the bigger projects was our coatings project for the secondary clarifier A. So that's kind of a continued asset management. We generally identify a tank each year as we do our annual inspections that is in the worst shape for concrete. So it was a sandblasting and coating and painting preparation project. You'll see there's a picture of it on the last slide here. So that was a big project to get out of the way last year. And this year, so construction starting very quickly. We're working with the teams, obviously ongoing there. So we'll have to have lots of good coordination with the contractors on the sewer conveyance project. Asset management replacements, yearly ongoing. We've got a few larger items up this year. That's just your general pumps and drive replacement. Continue work on the stage 3 LWMP, which is ongoing. And then yes, finalization of site master plan. We're excited to get somebody on board working with that. RFP is out, so we'll just select a preferred team later in the spring. A couple first time with our trunk main flushing for Hudson and Greenwood. So this will be the first flushing of the whole system there from end to end. It's on a 5-year cycle, as well as the siphon going under the Courtney River to the Courtney pump station. Thickener A was identified last year as our primary target for doing another coatings project this year. It's also going to it's got the original steel structure from 40 plus years ago that's in there, been patched, worked over the years. So it's going to get a full replacement this year. Compost site, that's a big one for us, for our operators up there. Again, we've kind of identified an area for safer operations. Currently, the operators have to climb onto the composting pile to actually probes in for the regulatory reporting that we need to do. Those probes need to be in there for the duration of the composting. So we're working on a plan to be able to insert longer probes through the roof structure so that they will be able to safely place them and remove them, staying out of the active composting bunker. We've got pretty much our last major SCADA controls consolidation project this year. We'll be working on the scrubber system, hoping to target that in the spring. So it's all finished and we're not tweaking anything in the summer when we want it running nice and smooth. And along with that odor control system, we have our first replacement of the activated carbon happening. So that was procured late last year. It's on site now, and we'll be moving forward with replacement of the carbon in our carbon polisher scheduled for the start of March. Those are some of the main projects for 2024. Trends and challenges, as we've talked about, the inflow and infiltration. We're looking forward to being able to kind of break that out on the all flows reports so that the city and the towns and we'll be able to see our peaking factors, and we should be able to break it out into the regions for City of Courtney, Town of Comox, D&D, etc. It's also been highlighted as something in the feedback from the province as moving forward for the stage 3 LWMP that we need to work to have that addressed and have a plan for it on I&I. Things have been getting a little bit better, supply chain issues. It's mostly lead times. So the asset management becomes really important because some of our lead times can be quite long on equipment, and cost increasing. It's also moderated slightly, which is great. But instead of the kind of the 2% annual that we've seen, it's much more in the 3 to 5% range. So continue to kind of work with our suppliers to look for cost savings there. We've got some trials coming up for polymers for our dewatering, where the bench testing looks great and it's cheaper supply. So those are the kind of things we're working on to save costs there. And that's all I've got. Back to Chris.
Thanks, Reed. This slide just summarizes the key board strategic initiatives, most of which were touched on by Mark in his core service summary. So I'll just keep moving. So starting off the summary of the proposed financial plan with the HR. So we see a big step down in operational costs, HR operational costs arising from the capitalization of the project management office resources. So prior to this year, Charlie, Cole, and Mary's time was billed and allocated between services based roughly on which projects were being delivered. We've now shifted, with the creation of the PMO, we've now shifted to capitalizing those salaries. So that shows up as a reduction for this function, although it will show up on the capital budget for the projects being delivered. And then in 2025, the service will start contributing to a new branch assistant and hire a new wastewater treatment operator to help manage the new infrastructure that will be completed over the next 2 or 3 years. So that position, that last one, has been on the in the financial plan for the last several years, anticipating the completion of the conveyance project, the addition of new infrastructure at the treatment plant. So year over year expenses are down across the board, with the exception of the reserve contribution, which is projected to be up year over year to help put money aside to help minimize the long-term borrowing costs on the conveyance project. Some of the big kind of noted items on the side there, a reduction in chemicals. So as Reid mentioned, we are replacing the carbon on our carbon polisher. That was a single $130,000 line item last year. So we took delivery of the material, as that's a once every 5-year cost. So thereby the chemical costs for 24 show as a reduction year over year. Legal fees are down as the conveyance project shifts into delivery. And then an increase in debt as conveyance project begins and we start to incur long-term debt. On the revenue side, the revenues for the service is mostly from the municipal requisition to Comox and Courtney, but with significant contributions from Septage receiving the D&D and the KFN. As approved in the existing financial plan, the requisition will increase from 8.1 million to 9 million in 2024 to help minimize conveyance borrowing. So increase our reserve contributions and help to minimize conveyance borrowing. This slide shows a better breakdown of the various revenue components broken out for the 5 years of the plan. Yeah, not much to highlight here, except that the projections for revenue pieces like D&D, Comox First Nation, are kind of based on our projected changes in requisition. So fairly steady increases anticipated there. And this slide shows the latter 4 years of the financial plan. So the key expense lines. Yeah, looking at the transfers to reserve falling off. So starting off fairly robust and falling off as we start to incur, we complete the conveyance project and start to incur the debt. So shifting over to capital, just starting off with some notes about asset management. So our focus this year will be to continue to update our asset inventory and our replacement schedule. Work at kind of pulling together the key inputs to update our risk and criticality, including expanding our condition assessment program, which is noted at the bottom. So a key input to the risk and criticality is the condition of this infrastructure, and we'll be working closely with Reid and his crew, as well as external contractors where appropriate to get us updated condition assessments, and then continue our efforts to integrate our infrastructure to GIS, and look forward to 2025, where we plan to start rollout of CityWorks, so the computerized maintenance management system for this service, which is almost complete in water. So looking at the 5-year capital plan, so the sewer conveyance project very clearly dominates the plan, but the first line there, annual capital equipment, we just happen to have our 3 major pieces of equipment up for replacement the next 3 years, being our one of our dump trucks that transports the biosolids from the treatment plant up to the compost facility, and then both of the loaders that move the material around at the compost facility. And those dollar values will increase a little bit from what is shown here in the recommended budget, as we've now received kind of estimates back from equipment suppliers, and they've no surprise coming in a little bit higher than what we had previously budgeted. Yeah, the other one to note there is 1101, the third from the bottom, the phase 1 upgrades at the treatment plant. So right now we're carrying some funds this year for completion of the design work, and then delivery of those projects in 27 and 28 once we've received approval from the province for the liquid waste management plan, which will be used to authorize borrowing for that project. As we move to complete our site master plan early this year and get into design work, those cost estimates are likely to change, but we'll see those when we bring our financial plan back in for the 2025 to 29 plan. And this is just looking at the subsequent 5 years, and there's not much to highlight there. And then just a summary slide of the sewer conveyance project. So expenditures on the left, and then showing how we're funding. So bottom line, as you will have seen in late fall there, anticipated project delivery costs of 96 million. And then the table on the right just shows the breakdown of long-term debt, short-term debt, DCC reserves, and capital works reserves. And this was a flow chart that we put together to help explain the various pieces that are kind of coming together to give us first to confirm a path forward for the treatment plant, and then procure it. So the various pieces being each of the lines. So the top one is the process expert, which we've engaged over the past couple months, and this was coming out of the value management process last year. So this is a third-party expert, Dr. Glenn Dagger, who literally wrote the textbook on wastewater process control. So he's going to be working closely with us to prove out some theories and ideas about how to optimize treatment at the plant, and then work with us to help feed that into the engineering RFP design, and that's the series of yellow boxes. So their first task is to finalize the site master plan and then get into the detailed design for the upgrades. And then orange, the stage 3 LWMP, which we'll be working on intensively over the next year. And so the outcome of the site master plan and the Class B cost estimates from the engineers will be key inputs to that process, as well as the inputs at the bottom. So including the South Sewer LWMP and the work that's underway right now by Mark, Derry, and Vince to help progress that project. So it's all going to come together into that stage 3 report. And then once approved by the province in early 26, we'll provide authorization for the upgrades to the treatment plant. A couple slides here, just walking through a summary of reserves. So generally, we're drawing levels down to fairly minimal to help minimize the long-term borrowing on the conveyance project. But we do expect to be able to start recovering those reserves after that project is complete, although with the commencement of the phase 1 upgrades at the treatment plant showing up as the transfers in 27 and 28, those levels will be fairly low until that project is complete. And then finally, a summary just linking our service activities to the board's strategic priorities. So that's it from us. We're happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much, Chris. And do we have any questions or comments from commission members? We could be setting a new record here. Chris, I'd just like to take this opportunity to acknowledge Reed's presentation. Thank you, Reed. And it's good to hear that your staff have got a more comfortable place to eat their lunch. I wonder if you would convey to them on behalf of the commission members and the citizens, the residents who we represent, our appreciation for the essential work that they do every day to take care of this important service.
I would be happy.
Yeah, thank you. And to other regional district staff, I just want to acknowledge the work that's been going on, particularly not only with regards to the budget preparation, but in relation to the open houses that have been taking place on the very important South Sewer project, which I've had the opportunity to attend several of those, and also want to acknowledge the hard work of Directors Arbor and Hardy and Grieve, who've been in attendance, along with all the staff members who've been out there making sure that residents know the ins and outs of this crucial project. So thanks very much to staff for all the work involved in that. And Chris, any final comments?
Nope, thanks for your time this afternoon.
All right. Well, I'm glad to hear that everybody's happy with the progress that we're making, and I will let you know that, well, I guess we should deal with the recommendation for this first. We do have a recommendation on the floor to approve the financial plan as presented, and would somebody like to move that? Moved by Grant, seconded by Kerr. Any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. I will let you know that the next meeting of the Sewage Commission, I will be away, and I'll be leaving in the very capable hands of Vice Chair Director Kerr, and thanks very much to him for stepping in. And with that, we shall take a motion to terminate. Moved by Grant, second by Swift. No one opposed. We are adjourned. Thank you.